Hello and welcome to the Games That Made Us podcast. I'm Future Brent here. Just wanted to welcome you guys back as we finish up our episode on the games that spooked us. If you remember from 2 weeks ago, we left off with Benny about to do his number 2 pick. So we'll jump right back in and let you know we'll do honorable mentions and we'll do number 1s and all kinds of good stuff. And I will talk to you guys at the end of the episode.
I have a pretty big honorable mentions list, so I wanted to remember which ones I actually
put me too.
There. Just for the sake of clarity, I will go with the original PlayStation 1 Resident Evil Director's Cut.
Number 2. Okay.
Just because it's got some of the, it's got... Well, it's the director's cut. It's what was meant to be the experience of the game. It's one of the quintessential horror titles of the platform, and arguably of cinema for the following 20 years or so.
Yeah. Best opening cinematic in
it's
video
great.
Game history.
It's kind of it's so awkward, right?
Yeah.
They clearly learned a lesson from it.
Yeah.
Which was probably don't do live action.
Yeah.
And if you do, maybe hire good actors. I'll acknowledge that. The opening is kind of terrible.
Yeah.
But kind of hilarious and charming. And it fits the time, I think.
And
I think it's absolutely a product of its time.
It fits the game. I mean, to me, Resident Evil has always been... Because I've always sort of... Resident Evil and Silent Hill always kind of fall in my head together because they came out in the same era, on the same platform, and Konami and Capcom have always sort of, had this I don't know. I always felt like they always were trying to battle each other with the same kinds of games, and Silent Hill is so serious and dark and takes itself with such it's a very self-important game series. Resident Evil has always been the kind of goofier, lighter, more... Well, and kind of, actually, I mentioned Ghouls and Ghosts, as opposed to Castlevania, right? And it's hey, there's a Capcom and a Konami series. Castlevania, very self-important. Ghouls and Ghosts, pretty fucking goofy. And Resident Evil has always had that kind of goofiness to it, which I like.
And
I have thoughts against that, and I'll get into that later.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But let's.
I do think that, and so there's I actually have a different. I don't remember who the producer of oh my god, Parasite Eve. Do you ever play Parasite Eve?
I haven't.
It is a great corollary. It is the same. It's basically the same game, with different
Final Fantasy kind of.
Yeah. I think that's a fair take on it. But it's the gameplay
game, yeah?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The gameplay is really similar. Mm-hmm. The story is kind of similar. They're almost the same game if you squint.
Yeah.
But they're also very different. And Parasite Eve takes itself really seriously.
Right.
Resident Evil doesn't take itself as seriously. Or maybe it thinks it does, but it doesn't do a good job of it. Yeah. Maybe that's where you're kind of going to go with it, because I think it thinks it's really serious. At the end of the day, gameplay wise, it's a survival horror game.
Yeah.
Your inventory management is critical. Unless you're playing as who is it, Claire? You don't have you have almost no inventory space. So the amount of ammo and healing items you can carry is really limited. And one thing I will say about the horror elements that it does really well is shock and what am I trying to say? Jump scares. Mm-hmm. One of the reason, the single scene that puts this on my list actually is early in the game. going down that hallway and the two dogs jumping through the window.
Yeah.
It's another one of those things where, like, I didn't say what happened in Dead Space, but the opening sequence sets the scene, and you know what kind of game you're in. You know what's going on.
Sure.
And there's a similar scene in Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Early on, that gives you an idea of the kind of game that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And as a I don't know, 13-year-old kid, how old was I when I played that? Probably not even that. Probably like 10 years old. That scene when the jogs dump, or maybe even the dogs jump through the window. I'm gonna go that one. It was terrifying when I was a kid. Like, it shocked me. Even on that little CRT TV that my friend. In fact, I watched a friend play it first.
Yeah.
I think that even for being a PlayStation 1 era game, I'm trying to remember when you do the. So this was before DualShock. I think you had DualShock, but I don't think you had to play it.
Yeah,
aiming is a challenge. So like the gameplay makes it scary because you don't have the kind of fidelity that you have today, where like your aim, your enemies are not fast. They are not immediately imposing and threatening.
But you also don't know where you think you're shooting at a zombie, but you could miss.
Exactly. Yeah, you have. There's an amount of learning curve to getting good at it.
There's no reticle. There's no.
Yeah. Well, and it's that PS1 tank control thing.
Well, Resident Evil games in that era were the third-person fly-on-the-wall perspective.
Yeah.
Where you move around in the environment rather than the environment kind of moves around you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So every camera angle you change to could really impact which direction you need to point your weapon.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then when you're not even really sure if your bullet is going to hit the enemy from wherever it is you happen to be shooting at, adds another extra layer of difficulty.
Yeah. And I will say that's one thing that adds to, or can add to, in a lot of scenes, the impact, the horror impact of it is the fixed camera angles.
Mm-hmm.
Because unlike in most modern games, the developer knew exactly where you were going to be and where you were going to be looking, which can set you up for more impact. Because it makes it more film-like in the way that the scenes play out. That said, tank controls fucking suck. Even you'll never convince me otherwise. Oh my god!
Even though you play as one character, you are just a character in basically a film unfolding around you.
Yes.
Even in that game.
Yeah.
And early on in the PlayStation 1's release, or in its tenure, the controller did not have the dual sticks that we're familiar with all controllers today. So I'm going to assume that every listener has seen a controller that has a directional pad, so like 4 directions, and then 2 sticks on the left and the right. In the beginning of the PlayStation 1, that did not exist. It was just the D-pad and 4 buttons and 2 triggers, and then like the system buttons, start, select. Actually, it didn't even have like a PlayStation button yet. We wouldn't come up with that for another generation.
Yeah.
The analog button would show up before that one.
Yeah. And then halfway through, or whatever, I didn't research that exactly for when that release was. We got those 2 sticks, and they called that the DualShock controller.
Well, so actually, there was a analog controller, and then they added the
vibration.
And that's when the DualShock came out. So there was actually 3 iterations of PS1 controller.
I forgot about the intervening, or the vibration one, but I just remember it changed how we played games. But when you only have one way of controlling direction for a character, it greatly limits the feeling of control you have, which is one of the core tenets of horror in film, right? Is like, we're portraying characters who don't have full control of their circumstances, which is what lends to tension and terror and the circumstances they find themselves in.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the control scheme is part of it.
Yes, exactly. Because in Resident Evil, for the people who haven't played it, you in these older PS1, PS2 games even, well, with the exception of 4, you had to stop to shoot.
Yep.
You had to press R1
That's right,
on your controller to aim, to raise your gun up, and then you had to press square to fire your gun. You had to be stationary. Otherwise, you could only press R1 and then like pivot basically on your back foot, essentially, even though your character would just kind of like awkwardly move. So you could kind of quote unquote aim and then fire. So when you have dogs or crows or whatever at high speeds running at you, you have to stop to shoot. So you need to be ready. Like that's part of the strategy behind a lot of it too. Was that whole aspect of it was having to stop, be stationary, and shoot.
Yeah, and I mean the limited control adds to the tension because you don't feel like you're in control of your circumstances.
Like when you have to stop to shoot, you're committed.
Yeah.
Like you either fire or you don't. If you don't, you're probably going to get hurt really bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very committal, strategic thing.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Anyway, that's my number 2.
I love it. All right. I have some honorable mentions.
Okay.
Honorable mentions.
The first one is Vampire Survivors.
Fuck yeah, man. It's so good.
It's so good. And it's just like it absolutely like it's one of those things where I love games that just like can eat time. Increasingly as a parent, like I'm going places to like just be present, but not necessarily to actively do things. And it's like, yeah, just something that can just eat some time. And that game is so fun and so deep, and so shocking in the level of like content that's available.
And how accessible it is.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It feels tough to get started.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get through, I will say, it's a little bit confounding the first 2 or 3 runs with the basic characters that you get.
Yes.
And then you start opening things, you start unlocking new characters, and you start building some of the currency, and you start building the buffs that you can, that are like, that follow you throughout your plays.
And then for me, when it comes to Vampire Survivors, it was also finding the interactions between which weapons work with other weapons.
Yeah.
Well, not just to combine them to like one of their super weapons or whatever, but which ones
like, which ones
complement each other. Yes, exactly. I'm a really big fan of getting the 2 guns right away, and you have to pair them with the tiramisu, so it just ends up turning into like giant pillars that shoot out of your body. Like that takes extra effort, but I feel like that's worth it. Whereas I've had a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I like getting the Bible with, I can't remember the other thing.
I like Bible and garlic.
Yeah. A lot of people like that combination.
Well, because
it's more of an AoE kind of thing,
and it's constant. Well,
yes.
Like the Bible, once you get it all the way upgraded, is like basically constant damage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get some of the buffs that modify the area, you basically take up 2/3 of the screen with it, and you're constantly doing damage to almost everything that's there.
Oh yeah.
Plus the garlic, you basically have area of denial.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Not just area of effect, but area of just flat-out denial.
Yeah, garlic is the best weapon.
Garlic and the
bad.
Bible together.
I get it. I used to use garlic all the time. I don't anymore. My tactics have gotten rid of it. I don't need it.
So that's what we were talking about, though, is like not just the weapons that we like in their own right, especially like when you get them upgraded to like their super versions or whatever.
Yeah, but like the weapons Grimoire and like the which ones add together.
Yeah, well, and which weapons complement each other, irrespective of their upgrade paths.
Yes, exactly. Even if they don't combine into an ultimate gun or whatever.
Yeah.
Which ones just complement each other the best?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of using all of the because there's also the holy water that does the like.
That one's very good. Yes.
Yeah. It's tough to start out in any of the fast-paced levels, or in some of the levels where you have to have a lot of movement.
Yeah.
So either like the towers or like the library, it's tough, but eventually it becomes, especially if you get the buffs that the actual size of the effect, then you're basically just hitting all of the screen all the time.
It's kind of like the dagger. Like early on, it's kind of a shitty weapon, but like especially is it the
axe? They almost all of them suck right away, but some of them suck worse.
Well,
like the axe sucks.
The dagger and the pomerel, I think, is the heart one. Like
yeah.
Those two combine, and then you get the one that's just like the
constant like machine gun.
Oh my god, that one's so cool.
And you have to prioritize. Do you want to do like focused attacks and like drill holes through waves of enemies so that you can escape, or do you want to do massive damage across everything and then hope it's enough to keep them at bay?
My bread and butter, and I was Brent, when you left, I was telling Benny this, was the combination of the two guns and the tiramisu. Or if you combine that, you have those basically pillars that just rotate your that do massive damage. But a lot of people also don't realize if you combine like the orbs along with the holy water, you get that also area of effect attack the entire time. But it also makes the gun size, like the pillars, bigger.
And you have to think about
and then also you combine that with the spell book, which combines spell speed. Like you can make it so those pillars, like, because normally if you don't have the spell book in specific, it just blinks on and off those guns.
Yeah.
But if you use a spell book, it if you max that out, it keeps them on all the time.
Right.
that's my jam right there.
And it can be more efficient when you pick weapons that use the same passive buff to evolve. That's what it's called. So like if you use like the dagger and like the staff, they both use the pomerol or whatever it is to evolve. So you only need one to evolve both weapons. So then you can pick extra buffs as opposed to like having to target specific. Like instead of having 6 weapons and having to target 6 different secondary items, you can target just a couple to target specific weapons, and then you can pick whatever buffs you want at that point, which sometimes matters, sometimes it doesn't. But this game, you can clearly tell this game has a lot of depth and a lot of strategizing. It basically being like a one-hand game.
Yeah. It is absolutely, it's right there with...
It's sometimes a no-hand game. Like, once you get to a certain point, you're like, well, I'm going to walk away and make a sandwich.
I've literally done that.
Yeah, like, I win, so I'm going to walk away until this is done.
Especially when you get some of the modifiers later where you can remove the time limits and stuff. Or like, have you guys beaten the Reapers yet?
Oh, yeah.
I've never beaten a Reaper.
Oh, yeah, you can defeat the Reapers.
I mean, there's still like a permadeath kind of Reaper who like gray one, you know what I'm talking about, who comes on the screen. Like, you can't bypass them, but the red ones, you can kill them.
Okay, I was gonna say I've fought past them for a minute or so, but I've never actually.
Especially if you got like the time Lancet thing.
You can freeze them. You fuck them up so hard.
Yeah.
No,
it's hilarious.
Vampire Survivors, great game. I stand by my earlier statement from, I don't know, the last 12 episodes where it's the best. It's the best deal in gaming.
Yes, hands down.
Death Smiles, which I've mentioned before, is a shoot 'em up by Cave, who's a great bullet hell shoot 'em up developer. Death Smiles is sort of a magical girl witch game that's super fun. Is available on the Switch if you're interested. Alien Isolation is a goddamn excellent game that really does a fantastic job of building tension. And I love how hard they went into the whole like film grain and the whole like 1970s CRT kind of aesthetic. The only reason it didn't make my list is because I hate crafting in most games.
Well, that game too has we talked about fear in the system that it uses for its AI.
Yeah.
Alien Isolation uses a similar system,
but
actually has 2 systems that, while one AI always knows where the character is, but it's limited to how it communicates that to the other AI that's trying to figure out where the character is and how it reacts.
Yes, I was watching something about that.
It's basically what is controlling the alien in that game is 2 different dumb AI models fighting against each other.
That's awesome.
It's really awesome. But they all use, I can't remember the acronym that is used in Fear to explain that system. We said it.
It's goal oriented.
Is it GOP, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something
like that. Yeah.
Programming or
Yeah.
Yeah.
planning.
Very
goal-oriented action planning.
Very, very fantastic form of character automation.
And
but great. Yeah, that game fucking, especially when you understand, like, well, I can't be mad at this alien. It's basically two idiots inside of its head giving each other conflicting information to try to find me. It's a little more adorable at that point. It's like, oh, well, okay. I almost feel like it's my fault it found me at this point. You know what I mean? Sorry, but go ahead.
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, that, like I say, there's a couple mechanics in that game that frustrate the shit out of me, but the tension building, visual aesthetic, sound design, oh my god, it's great, and it's available everywhere. You can even get it on Android. Pick it up. It's cheap and it's great. Super Castlevania 4. I love the Castlevania series pre-Metroidvania because I have problems with Metroidvanias that we've discussed on the show before. And Super Castlevania 4 is probably my favorite game in the series. I love the 8-directional whip. I know that's kind of controversial, but I think it's great.
It was just hard to control, in my opinion.
Yeah, but much less so than the NES Castlevanias.
Yeah.
The original Silent Hill is a great damn game. We talked about it already. I really love it. And then my last honorable mention is Hotline Miami, which is in terms of, like, we talked about like meta horror before. I really like games that kind of get your goat a little bit, that try and like get at you as the player and try and, grab you a little bit and make you consider what you're doing.
Like not the gameplay itself, but what's going on around you.
The psychological aspect of like, hey, have you considered what you're doing as a human being in this situation, which we talked about during the Link's Awakening episode. But Hotline Miami is a really great game. Again, a inexpensive indie game that I would strongly encourage anyone who has the means to go play, and the soundtrack fucking owns.
Yeah, it slaps hard.
Oh my god.
I have not played it.
What do they call it?
I have not.
What is it, like don't they call that like a trigger something, or there's a word for that genre in specific, like Hotline, or it's like reaction shooter. Yeah, something like that. Where like if you don't split second fire, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, well, and it's great because it's sort of marries my skill sets with an FPS, like, and so it was because like you're sort of like it's almost like a 2D FPS kind of in terms of the way it plays, and it's a little bit tactical, like a Rainbow Six kind of game. Very fun game, dude.
Okay,
knowing your musical tastes, you absolutely need to play it because it's very like the music is all very like synthwavey and like 80s retro vibe.
Oh, sweet.
Like,
okay.
Oh, it's so good. If you don't play that game for 30 minutes and wind up listening to Hydrogen by Moon on repeat, I will be fucking shocked.
Okay, I'll put it on my Steam wish list now.
Yeah. It's usually dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Worth it.
No, I like every day I drop the girls off at school, and I wind up tearing away from the school, like the fucking
like it's a top-down kind of shooter, but it's more in the way where you basically see a map, and you know what's in the room next to you, but the enemies in that room don't know you're on the other side of the door. But the difficulty comes from, like, if you get hit, I mean, you're done.
Yeah, it's a like
so
stealth.
You really have to like kind of plan out what you're gonna do.
Yeah, it's like a stealth tactical game with a top-down view.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Awesome.
So pixel graphics.
So it's not as if you can't burst into a room and kill everybody in it, but like it's a very Twitch reaction kind of deal, which is what I was trying to describe what the genre is called. I know they have a word for it, but
if you're gonna burst in on a group of 5 guys to kill them, you have about 2 seconds to kill them all.
Yeah. The last time I burst in on a room full of 5 guys,
you better make sure you hit fire before they do.
Yeah.
Why, Benny?
What?
Cheeseburgers.
Excuse me? Yeah. Why? Have you been here for the last, what are we on, 15, 14 episodes?
This is going to be episode 19 or 20.
Where have you been for the last 19 episodes?
Well, if Brent's
Jacking
poison has anything to deal with this, I've never been here at all, and I'm still just living in his head.
Oh, God.
So
I already like Five Guys burgers. What makes you think that? Anyway, this derailed quickly.
yeah.
And Kirk! Give us your...
Oh, I have no honorable mentions.
You have no honorable mentions?
No.
What?
No, just I was going to keep it short and sweet.
Look at you.
Think of one on the fly. Here's a
Fresh.
That would be the Killer Frequency.
Oh,
Okay.
I really enjoyed
Fair
that.
enough.
play that, yeah.
You will like it.
really like the idea.
You may
of
not
that.
love it, but you will like it.
I think if they narrowed the scope down more and limited your interaction, I think it could have made it scarier.
I think it either needs to be a smaller game or a bigger game.
Yes, thank you.
One or the other.
Ooh.
Yeah,
But what they attempted to do with it is good.
it's wonderful.
It's so charming.
Yeah.
If you find it on sale, buy it. Like, pick it up because it's not super long, but it figured out what it was quickly, and I like it when games know what they are.
Yeah.
Yep. And I guess Firewatch too. But that's more like because that leans heavy into the psychological
Yeah.
kind of like you don't interact anything that is directly a threat to you, but what is going on around you is pretty fucked up.
It is kind of menacing in
Yeah.
terms of the story.
So,
I'll give you that.
by the way, I'm still on and off playing that game Pools, the like liminal spaces
Have you died?
Pools game, and I still haven't found any bad guys. I'm not certain there are any, but it
telling
creeps
you.
the shit out of me every time I play.
That's awesome.
It's Brent trying to escape his own subconscious while he's in a straitjacket in a mental institution.
That
One of these
seems
days, you're going to see me and I'm going to fall into one of the holes in the pool, and you'll be like, oh, thank God. But then you have less
Finally.
friends in your own head.
right. It's just fucking Fight Club the whole way down.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
All right, Benny, you got honorable mentions, yeah?
I do. Let's
Good. Do it.
Honorable mentions.
let's go through this. I know which one so just for awareness, I promoted one that's not a classic game.
Okay.
It's actually a fairly new game to my number one.
Okay.
But it is the scariest game I've ever played. So when I mention it, I'm just prefacing that. So okay. So anyway, let's see, I did those ones.
I'll say Doki Doki is.
Graveyard Keeper is one of my honorable mentions. It's
That's a
so
good one.
cute.
Yeah.
It's basically a Stardew Valley clone, but in like you play a Graveyard Keeper. It's very similar mechanics.
Yeah.
You're on a 6-day week cycle. You can talk to multiple denizens of the town and the area, depending on which day of the week it is. You bury bodies. You can burn bodies. You're a graveyard keeper. You do things that graveyard keepers do.
Yeah.
In
Instead
addition
of being
to-
a farmer, you're a graveyard keeper.
In addition to distilling liquor and brewing wine and beer, or brewing beer and fermenting wine. What do you do with wine?
You ferment it.
You ferment.
Yeah.
Which you can do in
are
Graveyard Keeper and
are
in
you-
Stardew Valley.
Are you vintnering wine? Anyway, it's got all these same mechanics.
It's indie Dompe simulator.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's so charming. It's fun. It's got that gameplay loop that we sometimes talk about that I think it got you less than it got me and Kirk, Brent.
Yeah.
But man, it was so compelling for me. Like I couldn't put it down for like a month.
I
It's
wasted
great.
a lot of time on it. And it's a lot of fun.
It's super cute.
Well, I can't say wasted, but
No, yeah.
Spent.
In terms of ultra cinematic games, I believe I mentioned it before, but Until Dawn is a cinematic horror game from a few years ago. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but it's got a great twist. In fact, it's got one of the best twists.
Okay.
I have the best twists. No, it's good.
Look at my family. The best twists.
Look at me. Like I said, it's a cinematic game. It takes place in like the mountainous regions of the North America. It's not what it seems at the beginning, which is great. That's what you want. a PC game that is like super. If you're not into like Japanese culture or like anime or like any of these things, you're not going to like this. But it's called Ghostwire Tokyo. If you guys have maybe seen that on Steam, it's a first-person shooter. Or it's a first-person game. It's about. What is it about?
Oh man,
how to say it? I mean, it's not. It doesn't really defy explanation very much. It's just like it implements an open world first-person shooter in a situation where you are basically an exorcist, but in Japanese mythology.
Okay.
In modern day, though, it's a modern day. You are in modern day Tokyo. You explore some recognizable places if you've ever been, like, if you've ever seen them on TV, because
like Shibuya and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not huge, but it is I really liked this game.
Yeah.
It was very good. I expect that Kirk would love it, and I don't think that you would find a whole lot. But although you like Japanese mythology and culture, right? So like, there's a lot for anybody to like here. And the primary first-person mechanic is actually a bow instead of like shooting. Like, there's no gunplay, except that you have a bow. I don't. It's great.
You're making me a little sad that I forgot to include any of the Shin Megami Tensei.
I mean,
games.
You can tack that on.
The honorable mentions.
In fact, I think you're honorably mentioning it right now.
I am honorably mentioning Shin Megami Tensei. The whole series. They're great.
I'm sure Kirk will be back. Kirk has departed briefly.
Yeah, but the
Kirk is not departed. He has, and it will return.
The DS Tactics Shin Megami Tensei games in particular.
I haven't played those, by the way.
Those are super fun. Have you played Persona?
No, but I am aware of it, and I think that I have heard. So what I've heard is that like, what I'm afraid is that it's too late for me to get into it.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
it's like I missed the train.
Persona is spun off of Shin Megami Tensei, and not all the Shin Megami Tensei games are about kids in high school. So there's if you're concerned that
it's not about subject matter. I was worried that like the depth of like the universe and like the canon was too deep, and then I couldn't get into it.
You'll get into it. It'll be fine. Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. Brent snuck in an honorable mention. Were you here when I said Ghostwire Tokyo? Mm-hmm. Have you seen it or played it?
No.
So first person, open world exploration, but with like Japanese like exorcist mechanics, and like your first person shooting is basically all with a bow. It sounds bizarre. It's really good. I actually think you would probably like it.
Okay.
I wouldn't, if you find it on sale, actually pick it up because you like open world and first person shooting.
I'm mad that I don't have any Chinese jumping vampire games on the honorable mentions now.
So Ghostwire Tokyo. So Dead Island. I love Dead Island.
Mm-hmm.
It's another FPS, but like I think it's got very unique mechanics, like where you're like crafting, like, or you're like your improvised weaponry is always kind of a fun mechanic.
Yeah.
Honestly,
and it was one of the
Dead Island,
and it was one of the first ones, and like the scenery is so cool, where like you're like stomping zombie heads on like in paradise. It's great. I love it. There's a survival horror game called Outlast. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's fairly cinematic.
Okay.
It's all about evasion.
Okay.
One of the main mechanics is flashlight battery conservation.
Okay.
or like camera, night vision.
Exactly. So you've got a night vision camera, and you've got and there's a battery, so you can use the night vision on the camera.
Yes.
Okay. And there's a supernatural element, but there's a little bit of a mystery.
Okay.
It's available on Switch. It's really great. Another one of my honorable mentions is Alan Wake, which we mentioned earlier. Right. It's just excellent. It's so good.
Great
we kind of talked about it already. I also talked about Parasite Eve, which I would mention is another great PS1 era. If you don't like Resident Evil, try Parasite Eve. It's very similar, but maybe in in the same like channel but different. It's great.
There's a manga.
Yeah, if you
There's a what?
And there's a manga too. If you're
Oh, is there a manga?
If you want Silent Hill mixed with Final Fantasy, you're gonna like Parasite Eve.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the motif. And then the last one I had was Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver.
Oh,
So it's from the same, from
Cool.
from the Soul Reaver.
dude,
Okay,
I like it.
okay.
Yeah,
Like,
nice.
We're gonna be killing stuff and then sucking out the souls and like.
Yeah.
I even heard that I think they might be remaking it.
I know that they are. So they currently are. They re-released it for the Evercade. As a physical cartridge release. And then I think that
I think they're either continuing it or remaking it.
I think
or
that is the
remastering it.
next thing. So
And it was
awesome.
really good. It was well received, and then kind of like that series kind of just tapered off.
Yep.
To my recollection.
Yep.
So it's great.
Because it was always on like that cartoony kind of vibe.
A little bit.
Yeah. It was
Well,
like
and they
it was
kinda-
on the same lines of like Medieval, like that.
It
game
was.
where-
I think they pivoted with Legacy of Kain or with Soul Reaver. I think they
That's true.
pivoted and they tried to make it a little more
Castlevania
hardcore and Castle.
Yeah.
Exactly, that was the comparison. And it just never. It was never. I think it was a great game that just never fired on all cylinders, or maybe it was the wrong game at the wrong time. I don't remember. I mean, I was a kid at the time when I was playing it, but it sticks out in my memory. So those are my honorable mentions.
I love all of those. That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
So my number one is gonna be Limbo.
Okay.
I have it.
I love it.
Steam library.
I love it.
haven't played
I
it.
love it.
Oh, dude, you gotta play Limbo. Limbo.
I have it. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah. Limbo is Limbo was kind of, and actually I think I was with you when I was introduced to it. I think you had it on your 360 in college. And it was kind of the game that made me go, oh, okay, Xbox Live Arcade is a thing. Indie games are a thing. Like, this is something I need to be paying attention to. This is something I need to be aware of. And despite the fact that it's now, 15 years old?
Better part of 15 to 20 years old getting in there.
It's still visually stunning. It's a pretty...
atmosphere.
The atmosphere is so good. It's so creepy.
Yes.
It's also, we've talked on this show a number of times about like show don't tell, and like how how you can convey a story without having to necessarily have significant amounts of dialogue. Oh my god, the Limbo is so deep and
no dialogue in the game.
I think there's a really important lesson that a lot of games, let alone TV and movies, need to learn.
Yeah.
Because it adds so much, and then missing that lesson takes away.
Yeah. And it's the aesthetics, but so it's a black and white game, which I don't know why there aren't more of them.
This is the 2D side scroller, right?
Yeah, it's a 2D side scrolling puzzle platformer.
Did you ever play Inside? Same company.
Yeah.
I knew that. Actually, I have Inside in my Steam library as well, and I haven't played it, but I've seen it played. I watched it on Game Grumps, actually.
Same thing, a lot of the same game mechanics, a lot of the same style. It's just Inside's a little more 3D and then also has color. But
and I don't like Inside quite as much. It's good.
No,
it is really good.
Yeah, you're right. I like Inside, but Limbo to me, as far as moodiness, environment, atmosphere, and just building that tension is just a lot.
And there's something so very... I like my horror on the depressing side. I don't know if that's come across, but I like my existential crises in horror form, and Limbo does that. I mean, it's a game that you're gonna. Oh my god,
that's loud.
That is the loudest corn nut ever.
Whoops,
yeah,
sorry.
No, you're fine, bro.
Brett and I were both like, "Damn,
holy shit!"
Yeah.
But no, it's a very dark and quiet and ominous game. It'll stick with you. It has a wonderful arc. It leaves things, plot-wise, it leaves things kind of up in the air. You're not 100% sure what you just saw, which I like. And from a gameplay perspective, it's very smart. It's not a long playthrough. You could probably get through it in about 3 hours, something like that.
Yeah, they have like I think a speedrun achievement where you're supposed to do it in like less than an hour.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't think that's untoward. It's just it's smooth gameplay, visually really cool, very different, very unique. Sound design is excellent and ominous and gives that feeling of like this is one of those they should have sent a poet. I love Limbo. It's a great game, and I don't know that I have words to describe it other than if you have access to a thing with a CPU, you can play it. It's on every platform. It's cheap. It's great. And, turn the lights down, get yourself your favorite beverage, put it up on a big screen, and just soak it in, and you'll have a really good evening if you like horror and that vibe.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What they do with the silhouettes and how they manipulate more of the unknown to be part of the terror as opposed to inside where it's you see, or like Little Nightmare kind of, if you've ever played Little Nightmares, where you can see the danger. Limbo, 9 times out of 10 you don't see the danger,
and I love to,
and it's that mystery that makes it all the more dangerous and scary.
So many of the obstacles, like, so there's the spider is, the really, really memorable one, but the like Lost Boy style enemies with the blowguns, I don't know, for some reason the fact that it's also children that are trying to attack you makes it even more ominous. I don't know.
The random bear trap. Yeah. Even that's enough.
Dude, I don't know. It's a game that really gets to me, and I never, even though I know, like, I know all the puzzles, like, the puzzles aren't... the puzzles are great. It's a really good puzzle platformer. But even if you know all the puzzles, it has such atmosphere that it's really well worth revisiting.
Like, you're still anxious every time you play it.
Absolutely. Critical Scene.
Number 1.
My number 1 is Resident Evil 2, specifically the remake.
Okay.
Now, I don't really care for the other newest remakes of 3 and 4.
Sure.
Resident Evil 2, because it already had such a very... what's the word? I guess, I'll just say, nostalgia for the original.
Yeah.
When this one came out, it was not only very faithful to the original, but it twisted it in such a way where... my wife had to make me stop playing it.
Nice.
Because it kind of combined, if you've ever played Resident Evil 2, the original, like there's scenario A and scenario B, it kind of combines both of those into one cohesive thing for that particular character. Not only is the game very graphically stunning, the new engine, the RE engine, I think is just what they call it. I don't know what they actually is. I think, or I don't know if it's an offshoot off Crytek or whatever it is they use. Whatever it is, it's fucking fantastic, and they've been using it with all the other remakes they've been doing. It's visually very stunning. Again, we've talked about when it came to Dead Space with atmosphere and environment. This game really, really narrows that home for sure. Where Dead Space, there's always at least if you're in a hallway, there's room in the hallway, one way or the other. In Resident Evil 2, the remake, there isn't.
Yeah.
Because they stayed so faithful to the original where there's only 2 directions, forward and back. So you either have to deal with what's in front of you or you run away.
Right.
And that really kind of adds to the atmosphere as well. And then adding more modern day, ray tracing technology for... ambient light coming through a window, and the window has generic plastic over it, and then there's lightning flashes and rain coming through it, so it just adds to the atmosphere. It's crazy, while at the same time you're in a hallway and the electricity isn't working, so you only see the silhouettes of the enemies. Brent, I sent you a GIF the other day Where that one zombie, that's Resident Evil 2, the remake, where that zombie, like that's like a hallway scenario. That's pretty consistent.
Right.
In the entire game, the only time that game really deviates from the original is when you start getting to the underground and the sewers and the underground facility, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because most people don't remember Resident Evil 2 for that whole section. They remember it more so for the beginning section in the police station proper.
Yeah.
But in the remake, they had the added bonus of an almost Alien Isolation-esque fucking person hunting you the entire time while you're trying to solve these puzzles and kill all these zombies that are in your way.
Yeah.
At least with Alien Isolation, it's more of like an insta-kill when it finds you. This is not necessarily an insta-kill, but at least it's in the back of your mind like this thing could insta-kill you if you don't evade it the proper way. That's in the form of Mr. X or the Tyrant, whatever you want to call it. It's a mutated, specialized zombie in this huge trench coat, top hat, or not top hat, but like it's a whole thing. If you've played Scenario B and any of the originals, you know what I'm talking about. But this thing hunts you in a very, like, if you ever played the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, hunts you in the same fashion, but way more aggressively.
Sure.
People have done deep dives on how the AI reacts to you when it can't find you. Like, they've zoomed out on the entire map of the police station or wherever, like, where it can find you. How if the computer legitimately can't find you based off of footsteps or doors opening or closing or whatever, like, it'll teleport you kind of in the similar location so it can start hunting you again. And there are certain rooms that can't find you, or it just can't, it's not allowed to go into. That's fascinating in and of itself, and trying to play off of that mechanic. And not only that, what got me every fucking time is when he gets closer to you, he has a particular menacing fucking music. And future Brent, please put the music in when I'm talking right now. It just gets louder. It's this like fucking like Terminator-esque, like just anxious fucking music, and it just gets louder and louder as it gets closer to you. It doesn't matter if it's 2 rooms away, but it also kind of it's not only menacing, but it's also part of the game mechanic. If that music gets louder, it means he's getting closer to you and he's gonna find you, and he's gonna fuck your shit up. And so on top of, at the time I had I still have a really good computer, so graphically everything is amazing. I'm stupid and would play it at night when I have my really nice headset on and everything. So that's already like, maybe I should have at least turned a light on. I add all of that, but it got to the point where I would like pause the game, put my headset down, and I'd be pacing back and forth in the kitchen, and then Pam would be like, "Are you playing Resident Evil 2 again?" I'm like, "I'm playing Resident Evil 2 again." She's like, "Knock it off, go to bed." The game is wonderful. It's terrifying. And what I like about the earlier Resident Evil games is that it leans more towards into realism rather than the hokey kind of campy stuff. Where 1 and mostly 2, it's more like this can actually happen versus like you see in 3 and 4 and etc.
Oh, the big monsters and stuff.
Yeah. Resident Evil 2 is more of your traditional, your George Romero, fucking like your Night of the Living Dead, like actual scenarios of something weird actually happening.
Right.
Whereas the other one's
disaster flick.
Yes, an actual disaster flick rather than a weird sci-fi The Fly. Weird. Or the Cronenbergian kind of like it's
less body horror and it's more situational horror.
Yes, thank you. Where that's kind of where Dead Space flips that around a little bit, and I think with Silent Hill it's more of like more body horror versus environmental. Which I mentioned earlier. I think I disagreed at least with Resident Evil 2 in specific, because that one, and I have not played that one. It's way more believable as an actual zombie horror than any of the other games in the series. Where the Mansion was more, I feel, mystery horror. Resident Evil 2 is more environmental. And 3 and 4 is fucking whatever. Still good games, but like
I think the original is definitely survival horror.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's true.
And then the situational and like more like action horror, maybe following that.
Yeah, 5 was an action game. 6 was absolutely an action game.
Yeah. Is 5 the one in Africa?
Yes.
Wasn't that 4 or was that 5?
No, 4.
5 was in Africa for sure.
4 is Spain, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. 4.
Where it turned into it started to turn into more of a parasite rather than a virus.
Yeah. 4 is funny as fuck.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. That game is hilarious.
Not a bad game.
No.
Just weird.
Yeah. I'm
5 was...
going to break into your house, random Spanish peasant, and I don't speak Spanish, and you're angry at me for breaking into your house and yelling at you in English, so you must be a zombie, and I'm going to shoot you in the head.
Yeah, 4 started getting into the cults. Started getting into the cult.
And once I'm swept into office, I'll sell our children's organs to zoos for meat, and I'll go into people's houses at night and wreck up the place.
The cult and the parasites and all that weird shit. Like once Resident Evil hit that,
the little dude. I love the little dude.
Yeah. So like 2 was really the more. I felt like 1 is more isolated to just the mansion, so like it was isolated. But 2 was like, this is an actual city where people live in.
Yeah.
And this is happening all around them. So it really brought forward that realism. It's not like I'm in this isolated thing in the middle of nowhere where it's not going to impact anybody. This is a whole actual thing. I'm living in this area.
Because there's a GameCube remake of that one too, right? Is that one worth playing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say that's more of a
remaster.
Yeah, more of a remaster than a full remake because everything is exactly the same. Whereas this is like, it's very faithful, but this is a whole new game.
Got it.
Using modern graphics and everything.
Yeah,
right? So.
New modern graphics, modern engines. It's so wonderful. You see a lot of the hallways, and you're like, that meme of Leo DiCaprio and fucking that Tarantino movie pointing at the screen.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. There's a lot of that because it does remain that faithful.
Okay.
So if you knew the map of that game, you know how this game will work.
Sure.
Not entirely. Like there's still a lot of twists, but oh man, it's so wonderful. Okay. You see a lot of old destinations, and you're just like, I remember when I was 12.
My pants got smaller.
God, I wish. Oh man, there is no horniness in this game at all.
Fair.
With Jill and Resident Evil 3 remake, yeah, a little bit of horniness there, but like no, I that's why this one in specific is my number one because it's not weird, campy, unorthodox, uncouth kind of horror. It's like something that could potentially actually happen.
I got you.
So it's a little more believable and it immerses you just that much more.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm done.
No,
you talk. You talk now.
Oh God, that was ominous.
Your turn.
Number 1.
So we already talked about Dead Space.
Yeah.
And I don't think that
Morbo demands game reviews.
I have one that I'm going to put here, but it is a modern game, and we talked about Dead Space at length.
Yeah,
just because there were two of us with it
on
our list. So I think, and I don't think this one needs to be rehashed because like I don't have like a history with this game.
Yeah,
but it is the game that has scared me more than any other game I've ever played by a wide margin.
Oh Jesus! Okay.
It's The Mortuary Assistant.
Ooh, good one.
Oh yeah,
good one.
It is terrifying.
Okay.
It is unsettling. It is unpredictable. So ostensibly on the surface, it's literally an embalming sim. Like literally, it is that with pseudo randomized demon possession mechanics thrown on top of it, and your objective is to banish a demon.
Okay.
A demon has possessed one of the bodies in the mortuary that you are working in.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil too much, although it would be hard for me to spoil certain things because there's a bunch of endings and there's a bunch of scenarios that play out while you're playing the game.
Okay.
And they happen in different orders. So when you're embalming bodies, the tools and like the the components you need to do that are somewhat randomized around the office as well. So like every playthrough feels new. So you're never comfortable. That's the thing about this game, is that you never get to be comfortable. No matter how much you play it, something is, I guess you could play it to exhaustion and then get familiar, but it is deeply unsettling. So like there are moments where you might be reading some documentation on a computer because you need to do some research for this game. And while you're looking at this computer, and normally like in a game, there are certain games, like Dead Space is actually one where like when you're in your menu, you're not safe, right? It's like you open the menu, you're still in real game time. Yeah. It's like you are managing your inventory at your peril. Sort of a similar thing happens here. Like you may be looking at the computer screen to look up like the demon's name, for example. And you may notice some menacing little fucker start peeking up over a shelf out of the corner of your vision, out of your peripheral. And it's unsettling, and you back out of the menu and all of a sudden he's gone. Things are behind you. You never get to be comfortable. You never get to be at ease. It's an upsetting game. And I should mention that there are some content warnings. Just pay attention to the Steam page for this if you're going to play it. It's also available on Switch. If you've got the computer to run it, play it on Steam. You'll thank me. But pay attention to the content warnings. I don't want to give too much away, but there's some upsetting stuff there.
Pushing a gurney up and down that hallway, someone peek around the corner at you, and then the moment you look at it, it disappears. You're like, God fucking damn it.
And that is a great example of using gameplay to maximize or to multiply suspense and the feeling of being in a horror situation. Yeah. So yeah, part of it is like, you're in a mortuary, you're pushing bodies on a gurney up and down a hallway, and you're either putting them into like the refrigerated locker or putting them on the table to embalm them. The gurney, like, so when you grab the gurney, your head goes down and you're like, your view is limited. So like you may not see what's happening until it's too late. The gurney does not move quickly, and it turns like a semi-truck in a fucking hallway. It is so like, it's actually almost frustrating. That's actually my one gripe, is that it turns a little bit too slowly. Yeah.
And it doesn't turn like a gurney should turn, because any gurney or hospital bed can rotate.
They rotate freely.
Yeah. This does not.
Point. They've done it to delay you intentionally, and it's fine. It works. But it's infuriating, and it's also like deeply unsettling. But it is, and I have watched most horror movies because my wife loves horror. Yeah. And she watches all of them. She did like how many of these 110 horror movies have you seen? Yeah. And she had seen it was like 110, and she'd seen like 108. God. And so we went and finished the other two. Like, we had to finish the list. And I've seen most horror movies at this point. I feel confident in saying that. I've seen most of them. Right. And I don't think any of us here are particularly sensitive. Like, we can watch anything. Yeah. I can watch anything. This game is definitively scary. Mm-hmm. It's great. Like, I don't regret. I'll go back. We've shared it with friends before. Like, we've gone to their house and I've taken my little network Steam link to play it from my computer over the internet, just to like share it with people. Scary game. 6 or 7 endings. I think there's some hidden endings, so it's like there's a lot of replayability. The only reason why it wouldn't have made my original list is because it's a new game. Yeah. And it's not fair for me to call it formative or like a game that made me.
And graphically, it's still kind of primitive to modern standards too. It's not bad. I'm saying it's like more.
It's an indie game for sure.
5 to 10 years ago, rather than a modern title.
It's a game that was made in the last few years on a relatively small budget or with less knowledge, or however that played out.
Well, don't let that spook you,
away from playing it.
Yeah. It's still very unsettling.
Don't let it spook you.
Yeah. I'm sure that in time.
I just mean, like, don't have like fucking Doom Eternal expectations. It's not gonna happen.
It's gonna stick with me, and eventually this will be legitimately a part of this list based on like the time that we're kind of setting up. I just needed something to put here, and it is the scariest game I've ever played. Play it if you got the guts.
Fuck yeah.
I hate it when I'm like at the embalming table and that fucker's looking at me through the...
Have you actually played it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the window that's above the
sink.
Like the first time I saw that, I was looking at a file or whatever nearby by the embalming table, and I saw like the silhouette with the eyes looking at me through that fucking window that's above the sink, and I'm like, God damn it, fucking what?
Right? Like, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
you never get to feel at your ease. You never get to be comfortable.
Like, man, I'm just trying to make minimum wage. Like,
And there's, and it's got a lot more depth. Have you gotten any of the hidden endings or anything?
I only got the one. Well, I don't want to be a spoiler owl, so
there are things that aren't immediately apparent. There are things that aren't immediately apparent that expand a lot more of the character's history and the situation in general. So there's actually a lot of replayability is the real crowning achievement of this game. You could replay it a lot and get a bunch of different endings and uncover new stuff constantly. There's a lot of content, a lot more than it seems like.
I wish they would have fleshed out when you're back at her apartment. You know, when you start the day, done a little more with that for a little more immersion.
They could have, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all I can think now is when Kirk was like, I'm just trying to make minimum wage. It's like, I want there to be this game, but working at like a McDonald's at 2:00 in the morning.
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
There is a game like that. I can't remember the name of it, where you're like working at a fast food place and basically like shadowy figures and demons are coming and placing orders and serial killers, and like depending on your actions, you may get murdered behind their restaurant. Like, I need to look that up. There basically is a game like that.
But with the quality of the mortuary assistant,
kind of,
that could actually be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds fucking sick. Okay, all right. Well, I need to find that. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna go put this Baiju away.
Did you already do your number one?
Because it's scaring me. I did. It was Limbo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That poison is getting to me. Yeah, put that away, please.
I need this to leave me alone. I think just like the demon in Mortuary Assistant, this Baiju is staring at me, and the longer I look at it, it's like that quote from Nietzsche, like.
The Baiju stares back.
Yeah, the Baiju is starting to stare back at me. So we're gonna wrap this one up. If you like what we're doing, check us out. We're on Discord. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon. We're on Apple.
Hit that spooky like button. Leave a horrible comment.
Hit my spooky like button.
Go to our terrifying Discord.
And try to give our dick necks a spook.
I was gonna go back to dick necks.
Hide your dick neck and boober.
All right. We love you guys. We love you so much. Have a happy spooky season. Watch lots of scary movies. Play some of these scary games. Drink lots of scary alcohol, like Baiju.
And if you don't, that's not our fault.
We didn't. This is not our fault. We didn't do it. It wasn't me. All right.
Trick or treat.
Trick or treat. Bye, guys. It literally does not matter.
Captain Jack Sparrow. How do I not know his name right now?
Yeah.
21 Jump Street. All of that.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Clearly not just poison. It was also, like, I think my childhood's missing now.
Blow. He's in Blow.
Oh, God, he's amazing in Blow. One of my favorite movies.
All right. God damn it. I'm going to say it, and then we're all going to lose our goddamn minds. Hang on.
Why can I not think of his fucking name?
Oh, future me is just like
Johnny Depp.
Jesus
God
Christ.
damn it.
I know, right? Jesus, Martha. Okay, I'm going to need some more.
Valve
Still
released
a very
Steam.
good Hunter S. Thompson, but still.
Guys,
Anyway, all right, fuck it. This is not...
Kirk.
What?
Valve released Steam.
No, shut up. Okay. Number 2. Brent, do number 2, please.
Save us. Okay,